The Atlantic Star is a military campaign medal, instituted by the United Kingdom in May 1945 for award to subjects of the British Commonwealth for service in the Second World War, specifically those who took part in the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest continuous campaign of the war. Two clasps were instituted to be worn on the medal ribbon: the Air Crew Europe Clasp and the France and Germany Clasp. The Second World War stars. Altogether 8 campaign stars and 9 clasps were initially instituted for campaign service during the Second World War. On 8 July 1943, the 1939–1945 Star and the Africa Star were the first 2 of these stars to be instituted. One more campaign star, the Arctic Star, and one more clasp, the Bomber Command Clasp, were belatedly added on the 26th of February 2013, more than 67 years after the end of the war. Only one of these campaign stars, the 1939–1945 Star, covered the full duration of the Second World War from its outbreak on 3 September 1939 to the victory over Japan on 2 September 1945. No one could be awarded more than 5 campaign stars, and no one could be awarded more than 1 clasp to any one campaign star. 5 of the 9 clasps were the equivalents of the namesake campaign stars and were awarded for the same respective campaigns as those stars, to be worn on the ribbon of that campaign star of the applicable group which had been earned first. The maximum of 6 possible campaign stars of the following: the 1939–1945 Star with, if awarded, either the Battle of Britain Clasp or the Bomber Command Clasp. Only one of the Atlantic Star, Air Crew Europe Star, a France and Germany Star, and, if awarded, the first to be earned respectively of the Air Crew Europe Clasp, France and Germany Clasp or Atlantic Clasp, to be worn on the ribbon of that one of these 3 campaign stars to have been first earned and awarded: the Arctic Star, the Africa Star with, if awarded, the first to be earned of the North Africa 1942–43 Clasp, 8th Army Clasp or 1st Army Clasp, either the Pacific Star or Burma Star, or, if awarded, either the Burma Clasp or Pacific Clasp respectively, to be worn on the ribbon of that one of these 2 campaign stars to have been first earned and awarded: the Italy Star. Since only the first of the Atlantic Star, Air Crew Europe Star and France and Germany Star to be earned could be awarded to any one individual, the possible star and clasp combinations for these 3 campaign stars are: the Atlantic Star with either the Air Crew Europe Clasp or the France and Germany Clasp, the Air Crew Europe Star with either the France and Germany Clasp or the Atlantic Clasp, the France and Germany Star with the Atlantic Clasp. As a result of the different date ranges involved, the earlier period Air Crew Europe Clasp could not be added to the later period France and Germany Star. Institution. The Battle of the Atlantic took place between 3 September 1939 and 8 May 1945, as German U-boats attacked convoys transporting vital supplies from America and the colonies to Britain. Warships of the Royal Navy and aircraft of the Royal Air Force escorted these convoys, hunted the U-boats and, despite some notable successes by the U-boats, eventually won a comprehensive victory in the Atlantic. The Atlantic Star was instituted in May 1945 to honor those who took part in the Battle of the Atlantic and was intended primarily for award to those who served in shipping convoys and their escorts and anti-submarine forces, as well as to those who served on fast merchant ships which sailed alone. 2 clasps were instituted to be worn on the Atlantic Star's medal medal ribbon, the Air Crew Europe Clasp and the France and Germany Clasp. British uniform regulations stipulated that no one person could be awarded more than one clasp to any one campaign star, and neither the Air Crew Europe Star nor the France and Germany Star could be awarded to a recipient of the Atlantic Star. Subsequent entitlement to either of these two stars was denoted by the award of either the Air Crew Europe Clasp or the France and Germany Clasp. 2. The Atlantic Star regulations further stipulated that only the first clasp earned could be worn with the medal. Award criteria. Broad criteria. The qualifying areas for the award of the Atlantic Star were the Atlantic and home waters excluding the Mediterranean, the South Atlantic between the longitude of Cape Horn and longitude 20 degrees east, and the convoy routes to ports in North Russia. The Atlantic Star was awarded for 6 months' service afloat in the Atlantic or in home waters within the period from the 3rd of September 1939 to the 8th of May 1945. It was also awarded to aircrew who had taken part in operations against the enemy at sea within the qualifying areas, subject to having served for 2 months in an operational unit. The 1939 to 1945 star must have already been earned by 6 months' service, or 2 months for aircrew, before commencing qualifying service for the Atlantic Star. Merchant seamen also qualified for the award of the medal, also on condition that the 1939 to 1945 star must have already been earned. They were required to have served in the Atlantic, home waters, North Russia convoys of the South Atlantic. Special criteria. The award of a gallantry medal are mentioned in dispatches for action while serving in the qualifying areas. Qualified the recipient for the immediate award of the Atlantic Star, regardless of service duration. Personnel whose required qualifying service period in the qualifying areas was terminated prematurely by the death, disability or wounding due to service were awarded the star regardless of service duration. Certain special conditions also applied governing the award of the Atlantic Star for those naval personnel who had entered service in the qualifying sea area less than 6 months before the end of the qualifying period, provided it was the last operational theater in which they served. Order of wear. Campaign medals and stars are not listed by name in the order of wear prescribed by the British Central Chancery of the Orders of Knighthood, but are all grouped together as taking precedence after the Queen's Medal for Chiefs and before the Polar Medals, in order of the date of the campaign for which awarded. The order of wear of the 9 campaign stars was determined firstly by the respective campaign start dates, secondly by the campaign's duration and thirdly by the dates of institution. The 1939 to 1945 star, from the 3rd of September 1939 to the 2nd of September 1945, the full duration of the Second World War. The Atlantic Star, from the 3rd of September 1939 to the 8th of May 1945, the duration of the Battle of the Atlantic and the war in Europe. The Arctic Star, from the 3rd of September 1939 to the 8th of May 1945, the duration of the Battle of the Atlantic and the war in Europe. The Air Crew Europe Star, from the 3rd of September 1939 to the 5th of June 1944, the period until D-Day-1. The Africa Star, for the 10th of June 1940 to the 12th of May 1943, the duration of the North African Campaign. The Pacific Star, for the 8th of December 1941 to the 2nd of September 1945, the duration of the Pacific War. The Burma Star, from the 11th of December 1941 to the 2nd of September 1945, the duration of the Burma Campaign. The Italy Star, from the 11th of June 1943 to the 8th of May 1945, the duration of the Italian Campaign. campaign. The France and Germany Star, from the 6th of June 1944 to the 8th of May 1945, the duration of the Northwest Europe campaign. Preceded by the 1939 to 1945 Star, succeeded by the Arctic Star. Description: the set of 9 campaign stars was designed by the Royal Mint engravers. The stars all have a ring suspended which passes through an eyelet formed above the uppermost point of the star. They are 6-pointed stars, struck in yellow copper zinc alloy to fit into a 44 mm diameter circle, with a maximum width of 38 mm and 50 mm high from the bottom point of the star to the top of the eyelet. The obverse has a central design of the royal cipher GRIV surmounted by a crown. A circlet, the top of which is covered by the crown, surrounds the cipher and is inscribed "The Atlantic Star." The reverse is plain and, as with the other Second World War campaign medals, a no engraving policy was applied by all but 3 British Commonwealth countries. The recipient's name was impressed on the reverse for Australians, Indians and South Africans. In the case of South Africans, the recipient's force number, initials and surname in block capitals. Clasps: both clasps were struck in bronze and have a frame with an inside edge which resembles the perforated edge of a postage stamp. They are inscribed Air Crew Europe and France and Germany, respectively, and were designed to be sewn onto the medal's ribbon. Regulations only allow 1 clasp, the first earned, to be worn with the star. When the ribbon is worn alone, a silver rosette is worn on the ribbon bar to denote the award of a clasp. The ribbon is 32 mm wide, with shaded and watered bands of blue, white and sea green, with the colors representing the colors of the Atlantic Ocean. The ribbons for this medal and a defense medal, as well as those of the other Second World War campaign stars, with the exception of the Arctic Star, were devised by King George VI.